Toyota, the car manufacturer, they know about Trump's tariffs. They know what he's talking about. And they are not making any changes to their manufacturing. In terms of the cars that they sell to the US, most of them are being made in Canada or in Mexico, Mexico being the cheaper option. And doing so, makes it cheap for them. And when you're talking about Trump's tariffs, when he's really just isolating Canada and Mexico for these tariffs, and China, which is not relevant right now, but when he's talking about these tariffs for Mexico and Canada, we're talking about all the products that are coming in from there. And if you're going to sell a product coming from Mexico into the United States, that means, the tariff is on the product themselves. So Ford makes their turbo diesel, their 6.7 turbo diesel engines in Mexico and then brings them here. So the tariff isn't on the corporation, it's on the product themselves. So you're going to get a tariff on the 6.7 turbo diesel Ford engines when they come into America. So it doesn't matter if the corporation is American. The only thing that matters is the fact that the product is coming from these places. And so Toyota has spent billions on putting factories close to America. They do have factories actually in America, but the bulk of their products are actually in Mexico because it's cheaper to make them there. I mean, even China is having a higher standard of living, causing the labor to go up. Also, just the whole logistic thing of just bringing it from across the world to over here, it makes sense to make them in Mexico. So if they make them in Mexico and you got these tariffs coming in, we're talking about these products having extra tax just to go into America. Toyota is saying that they're not going to change anything. Toyota is looking to keep everything the same, cut costs in other ways in order to not raise the prices. They specified they will not be raising prices. This is the only right move. This is the only move that you should be making, because these are only rumors. It has nothing to do with what is. Like, what is right now is that there are no new tariffs. There's not a single one. 0% on increased tariffs from Canada or Mexico today on March 31st. Is it the 31st of March or is it the 1st of April? I don't know. I don't know what months have 31 days. But they're not doing anything. So does that mean that they're like calling his bluff? Does that mean that they know something? I have no idea. But the fact of the matter is they're not changing anything. And it leads me to believe that they know what Trump is. Trump is an instigator. He's a provocateur. There's a lot of things that he just doesn't do, but he talks a lot of shit about. When he ran the first time and the second time, Trump was huge on immigration. Right now, there's the TV show of all these ICE raids happening in America. All these people are getting deported. Huge numbers is what they're claiming. But the amount of immigrants that are being shipped out, that are being deported right now, is not even close to the amount to make any sort of change, right? If we have 10 million in the last 7 years, and we're still in the first 100,000, that's not even 0.1% of the immigrants that even came in the last 5 years. So if we just do that it's March, it's been 3 months, it's been like he started January 20th, right? So like, it's only been like 2 months. Yeah, it's only been 2 months. If we have 100,000 every 2 months, what's that? There's 6 of those, so that's 600,000 a year. What, you're gonna get 6, 12, 18, 24. So in 4 years, you're gonna get 248,000. You're gonna get 2.4 million. That is, if we're going by the 10 million number, that's literally, it's 25, 2.5. Why am I so bad at this? I'm good at math. It's 25%. That's a quarter. You got a quarter of the people being deported. Not even close. So we know that we can't trust Trump. He did it before. He said shit before, didn't come through on it. He said stuff again, and now is acting like he's the big bad boy out there on Capitol Hill, making all these moves, and it's still not even close to what he said was going to happen. I mean, he's not even prioritizing the dangerous ones that he said. And it doesn't matter what my view on immigration is. This is just what is. And right now, what is that he's not even like prioritizing the dangerous ones. He's prioritizing the ones that are protesting this small country in the Middle East. So, let's see. My phone's no longer in the shade. That is not going to help. Fuck. It's got to be this way. Sun's out, which means it's getting hot. My phone's going to overheat. Not cool. I am chunky. So we know we can't trust Trump. So when you take that idea that you can't trust Trump, and he is talking about tariffs, the number one thing anybody should be doing is not believing him. Do not make moves, according to what he says. This is the Federal Reserve's plan in action. The Federal Reserve states that they will be using forward guidance. They will be using credible threats, meaning that they're specifically going by their words and their words alone in order to affect the economy. If they're going to affect the economy by doing that, that means that what they say is going to be either jumping the gun way too early, right? Jerome Powell talking about we're going to cut interest rates, and it doesn't happen for a whole year. And then even if he did cut interest rates, it happened in a way where it's just not even close enough to actually have a stimulative effect to the economy. So it's not even enough. So we know this. We know the story of the gold machine. The gold machine is that you got a guy makes the gold machine. You got people that verify it. Once they publish the story, once the verification happens, the story gets published, the price of gold plummets. The gold machine does not need to be plugged in. The gold machine does not need to be working right now. Just the fact that the verification is out there and is published means that the price of gold is going to plummet before anything happens. That is the Federal Reserve's plan right now. If they spread the rumor, and that rumor is verified, and it doesn't have to be verified in the sense that it's happening. It has to be verified in the sense that people believe it. That somebody with credible rapport comes out and says that this is going to happen, then it will affect the economy in the way that they're aiming for. That's enough on that. Let's see, 8 minutes. Okay. So nobody's watching this YouTube channel yet. I've been trying to understand how they are raising the neutral interest rate lately. So I try not to listen to them because I don't want to sound like anybody else on YouTube. But I went to the only guy that explains this, which is Uneducated Economist on YouTube, and I super chatted him and I asked him a very specific question, which is how is it that the tariffs will raise the neutral interest rate? What about the increased inflation expectation raises the neutral interest rate? And so I'm just going to rehash it because I want to understand it too, because it's really confusing. I don't really understand. So the neutral interest rate is the interest rate that is not derived. I didn't want to do any editing, but now I have to because my phone ran out of storage. Okay, so the neutral interest rate is the interest rate that is neither stimulative nor restrictive. So if the neutral interest rate is 3%, a Fed funds rate, right, the real interest rate of 5% would be restrictive. The interest rate of 1% would be stimulative. 1% meaning money's cheap, 5% meaning money's expensive, difficult to get. So if you have a neutral interest rate that is too low, as it reaches the lower bound of zero, that means that you cannot use an interest rate to stimulate the economy anymore because the neutral interest rate is too low. So the new plan comes about. Let's affect the neutral interest rate by simply using the words alone. And this is the part I don't really understand, but I'll try to verbalize it for myself. When there is an expectation that things will be more expensive in the future, two things will happen. One, you will be expecting to spend more money in the future. That is the first thing that people do. They expect to spend money in the future, and they'll, change their habits accordingly. For example, like if you got a guy that is expecting these tariffs to happen, he might buy products now in order not to spend more on the products later. There's also the expectation that there's also the point that because things will be more expensive later, he's going to save his money now. That's the first thing that happens. Those two they're together, right? Like, so what people do with their money is the first thing that happens. They will save their money they will save their money. That's the first thing that happens. They're going to save their money expecting, they will get liquidity because they think that they will have to be spending it later. So if you have assets in the stock market or on housing, wherever it is, wherever you have illiquid assets, meaning it's not cash, right? So the more liquid something is, the closer it is to cash. So the US Treasury is the most liquid you can get without being cash being the most liquid you can be. And then the farther away from cash, for example, a house is much less liquid than a treasury or stock because it takes time to sell the house. It takes time to get into cash from that house. So the first thing that happens is people save money, expecting to spend it later. The second thing that happens is that when an investor invests, now because they expect things to get more expensive later, they also expect a greater return on that. Now here's where I get lost. How does that raise the neutral interest rate? I don't know. Which is why I started these YouTube channels, so I can figure this shit out. So, I know that the neutral interest rate is the rate that is neither accommodating nor restrictive. And if you have a real interest rate that is above that, that is restrictive. So the tariff itself would also be a restrictive action. The tariff just meaning that more money will be spent. And if people expect more money to be spent, they're going to save it now. And they're going to put investments into something that they're expecting a greater return on. Yeah, I just don't really get it. I don't even want to publish this video anymore. I'm gonna fucking do it. I don't care. But yeah, that part's so confusing. So if you're an investor, wouldn't you already have wanted to make an investment in which you would get a greater return on? It's confusing because like what I said about Toyota, where they said they're going to try to cut costs as much as they can in order to, make a savings in which they would lose through the tariffs. That's something they've always been doing. You're not going to make a move now and think oh, we're not saving as much money as we can so that later we can save more. That doesn't make sense. So I could only see Toyota saying that they're going to save money now as really just a way to make investors feel a little more comfortable. But in reality, there's no way that they've been doing anything that saves them less money than they could later. So like if you're an investor, like you're gonna expect a greater return. Well, okay, so I could see, I guess we're getting somewhere, because if like people are spending more money later, right, for the same product, that means that your return should be bigger. Like you should have a similar return if the company that you're investing in is making more money because things are more expensive. Like sure, like the ratio in which like everything is more expensive, like sure, it's going to be the same. Like if a Toyota car is going to be like 10% more expensive next year, that would make sense that you would expect a 10% return because now everything is 10% more expensive. So I get that. That part's coming together. So like if you're an investor and you're expecting a greater return because things are more expensive, that makes sense, because if the product that you're investing in or the company that you're investing in is selling things for a higher price, that should mean that you should get a similar return, you should get a similar increase in return as they get an increase of revenue, because more money is just simply being spent. Oh, more money is being spent. Money velocity goes up. That's the point. That's why I made this YouTube channel. Yeah, money velocity goes up. That's going to create the neutral interest rate to go up. And as the I figured it out. As the neutral interest rate goes up, that means that whatever the interest rate is now, that becomes more stimulative. So like if the neutral interest rate and the Fed funds rate, like if both of those are exactly the same, say 3%, that's not what it is, but let's say it is 3%, and then the neutral interest rate starts going up. So like you create an expectation of inflation. All right, okay, we're getting this. So if you get an increase of inflation expectation, if you're an investor and you see that next year things will be more expensive, first thing you're going to do is save money. That's actually going to cause money velocity to go down initially. But I can see how if you're an investor and you see you're going to invest in Toyota, and then Toyota prices are going to go up because of tariffs, your expectation should be that because Toyota is raising their prices, that means they have more revenue. If they have more revenue, you should also, as an investor, get more money because the revenue rose. And so that guy who invested should be expecting more money. It's that thing again. Everybody's just going to spend more money. If you get more money coming in, you will spend it. And if you spend it, that's money velocity. And it's not just you, like as the Toyota investor, it's everybody as the investor of these companies. Everybody is going to spend more money. It's all about spending money. It's about money. It's about the amount of money spent per day. So if you get money velocity going up later, you're going to have the neutral interest rate going up. As that neutral interest rate goes up, that means the actual interest rate, the Fed funds rate, that will become more stimulative because the neutral interest rate is going up. And I think we're getting somewhere. It's pretty fucking sick. I just figured it out. Kind of. Still a little iffy, but like I think I'm getting the big idea. Right? So if Trump is talking, we're going to do tariffs. We're going to do tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Toyota makes their engine. I don't know what specifically they make. I think they actually assemble their cars in Mexico. So if Toyota is assembling their cars in Mexico, that's the whole thing. It's the expectation. It's not about what's actually happening. So right now, investors are assuming that the price of Toyota cars will go up 25%. Because that's what the current thing is right now. Like, the tariff is allegedly supposed to be 25%. It's supposed to be apparently in April, but I could see it totally happening where like April comes and they're like, well, actually they gave us what we wanted, so we're gonna lower, or we're gonna do nothing, like whatever. But because investors think that in the future the prices will go up, they're gonna spend the money as if they're already getting money in. Is that how that's gonna work? So does that mean that they're all just stupid and they're all just spending money they don't have? That's how we got here. That's how we have this system, is because people spend money that they don't have. But I can see how, like, if you're an investor and you're seeing a 25% tariff, you're gonna expect a 25% upgrade in return, because the revenue for Toyota will go up 25%, because they're just gonna pass the price on to the consumer. Yeah. Yep. So if the consumer is paying 25% more, as an investor, you're gonna think that you're gonna get 25% more of a return on your investment, because technically it's not profit, but the revenue of Toyota just went up. So if their revenue went up, doesn't matter about the profit. The fact is they're getting more money coming in. More money coming in is just going to mean that you're going to get, as the investor is going to get more money coming in. And if you think that you're going to get more money coming in, you're probably just going to spend more. Like, your money velocity is going to go up, and that's going to raise the neutral interest rate. The neutral interest rate is, in a way, like the expectation of, no, it's not. It's not at all. But there is a correlation between, like, the expectation of how much prices will be and the neutral interest rate itself. Because if you think that prices will go up in the future, you're going to act as if that is so. And so, one, you're going to save money and get liquidity out of your assets. And then two, you're going to expect that same return, right? So you're going to actually try to invest in something that is going to give you that increase in return, because you're going to expect that, for example, Toyota getting a 25% tariff, that tariff is actually going to be passed on to the consumer. And if the consumer is paying 25% more, then you as an investor should be getting a return of, I guess you can't, as an investor, expect the 25% that Toyota gets, but you should be, it is reasonable to assume that you will be getting a return higher than you would have been before the tariff, because Toyota's revenue went up. I think at this point I'm talking in circles, but I'm trying to figure this out. But I think we'll go on that. We'll marinate on it. I'll think about it. But I kind of like it. We're getting somewhere. All right. But everything will be all right. You'll figure it out. Fucking better. Don't be a bitch.